I expect we're going to have a few more people that will join us, but to be respectful for everybody's time, we're going to get started. We actually have a lot to go over today. And first of all, I want to welcome you. My name's Chris Rindosh. I think most of you know me at least as the guy that sends you all those emails. And for those returners, it's really nice to see you again and have you back for this time, our first ever virtual Student Group Leadership Summit. When we had the Student Group Leadership Summit in the spring, I really thought, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how we're going to make it work in Smith Hall with the renovation in the Union. This seems like it's impossible. If you told me 6 months from now we'd be moving the whole thing virtual, I would have been like, you're kidding. I think some of you probably have had a pretty good amount of experience with Zoom and WebEx related to your classes, but I really quickly, before we hop into the program any further, hold on one second. I want to just go over a couple of etiquette rules for this Zoom event. First off, if you can, please ensure that your microphone is on mute when you're not actively speaking. There will be points through the presentation where we will ask you to potentially share, specifically in the breakout sessions. But just so that everybody can have a good experience, we're really going to be trying to keep the I would say airwaves clear for our guest speakers, and it'll just minimize the background noise so people can hear. I do encourage you to keep your camera turned on if you can. I realize everybody's personal living space and your environment, you might not be possible. You know, today is, I think, very important, and you'll probably get that from the presentation that I'm going to give in a little bit here. But we really want you to be as present as you can with us today, because this is unprecedented times, and we're trying to make sure that you're as set up as you can be for success this year. I see a lot of you already understand the chat function. I encourage you, as the presentation is going on, to utilize the chat function. I will try to keep it up on the side of my screen and react to the things that you're saying as we're going through the different presentation. You can also talk to each other. There is a whisper function if somebody said something, you want to follow up with them. In normal times, you would have the opportunity to network with different student leaders, so I don't want to completely take that away from you today. So don't hesitate to be involved. Do not disrupt the event. Jake, I see you typing lots of 5s into the chat. I'm not sure if you fell on your keyboard, but we're going to please ask that you please don't be disruptive. We're trying to make sure that this event is productive for everybody. I don't think I should have to go into more detail with that. If you're exceptionally disruptive to the event, we will remove you from the event. Okay, so Ashley Huff is our moderator today for the event. Marlena, she's my graduate assistant, and she should be joining us. She's having internet issues, which can often be the case with these types of events. So if you do have a Zoom-specific issue, you should be able to, in the private message area, message Ashley directly, and she can try to answer your question or help you out. You can also message me, but if I'm in the middle of presenting, I might not be able to answer your question right away. We do have captioning service available for the event. This is the link to that. And Ashley, I don't know if it's possible for you to, oh, I just got a PM from Marlena. She's here, so that's great. I'll have her introduce herself later. So you can also message Marlena Weiss. She has moderator powers as well. Ashley, can you please share the link to the streaming services in the chat? So if you do need caption services, they'll be available. And if you would need captioning services for your breakout session that you signed up for, you can message Ashley and we can try to ensure that that person's in the correct area for you. All right, and then the last thing is we will be recording all of the summit with the exception of our featured speaker, because we can't give in his contract, otherwise I would do that too for you. So what I mean by that is you don't have to worry about taking all the notes with every single link down, because we will have the videos available for you afterward. This is one of the big advantages of us doing this virtually this year, so we're really excited to be able to do that. So for even those different executive board members that maybe couldn't be here today, you will have the opportunity to share the full content of the presentation with them. All right. Before I go any further, I also am very happy that we have a special guest with us today, who I'm going to invite to unmute himself in just a second. With us today is our Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. Vernon Hurte. He started last semester just after the Spring Student Group Leadership Summit, so he didn't have the opportunity to attend to meet all of you, but I'm very excited that he was willing and able to join us this Saturday morning to welcome you back for a great semester here at Taos University. So Dr. Hurte, hopefully you're here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can be blown up and address our students.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Well, good morning to all of our student leaders. It's really great to have the opportunity to connect with you this morning. Again, I'm Vernon Hurte. I have the great privilege of serving as Vice President for Student Affairs here at Towson University. As Chris shared, I joined TU back in February. So it has been quite an interesting introduction and journey as a new Tiger, a new member here at Towson University. First of all, I want to thank the student activities team, and particularly Ashley and Chris for your leadership and continued support of the development of our student leaders. When I think about my college experience, some of my most memorable experiences are connected to my involvement. Particularly my involvement in student organizations. I was actively involved in student government. I was the vice president of senior class. I was a part of Psychi, the Psychology Honor Society, Greek life. So I was really active as a student leader. And when I think about my college experience and think about my growth and development as a leader over the years, I can point back to my experiences as a undergraduate student and my experiences as a campus leader. So it's always a great opportunity to be able to greet and welcome our student leaders, because you add so much to the richness of the Towson University community. I charge you and really challenge you to be engaged today, to take all that you can from this experience and share with other members of your exec board, other members of your organization. A big part of our commitment to you here at Towson is to help you grow and develop as leaders. And so this is one of the venues and opportunities to do that. Before I close, I want to simply say one thing, particularly as we reflect on 2020. If there is one particular leadership lesson that is really at the forefront and front of mind for me as I reflect on this year, it is the reminder that leadership requires adaptability. We have seen that need as leaders to be adaptable, to be flexible, to be able to adjust as the context changes. And so even in hosting this event, there's an adjustment that has taken place in order to adapt to the current context. And so I continue to encourage you to develop that adaptability, develop that flexibility. I know that you will continue to rise to the occasion as you engage other students on campus and really do great work through the venues of your student organization. So again, I want to thank the team for the opportunity to offer some words of welcome this morning. And I know it's going to be a great day. So you all have a great time engaging today.
Thank you, Dr. Hurte. And since I've asked everybody to mute themselves and it could be a disaster on mute, I won't have you clap, but if you could just wave, show some appreciation to Dr. Hurte for being with us. Thank you. Dr. Hurte, we really appreciate your words of wisdom and for being with us this morning.
You muted your mic.
Your mic's muted.
Chris, you're muted.
Thank you guys so much. So that whole thing with waving to Dr. Hurte was literally you guys figured it out from me not saying something? Okay.
Well, we heard that part, but not the rest of it.
Okay, great. Well, let's start with a question really quickly, and please utilize the chat. I just want to ask, to take a breath from the start of this year, how are you dealing with coming back to campus, then not back to campus, and now being virtual once again? So I see kind of bad, pros and cons, not too well, to be expected, stressful, a lot of stressful, it's a lot. It's okay, I'm tired, pain, hard to manage, bad timing, frustrated. I'll be honest, I'm right there with a lot of you. This has been a really difficult start to this year, and I think we need to acknowledge that for everybody within our organizations and ourselves as well. Even when I planned this event 2 weeks ago, the presentation today was supposed to be about event check-in app and COVID procedures, how we can do events safely on campus, and what does it mean to be hybrid, and all of that just went completely out the window. And I realized in preparing this presentation today that the part that was more difficult for me wasn't the fact that I had to redo the presentation. It's that I was kind of, I won't say so excited, and I didn't even realize it, to be starting back up, to kind of going back to normal, to seeing everybody again, and it just felt like I took 10 steps backwards. And I think we have a lot of people that are probably dealing with that same type of feeling within our organizations as we're now navigating what does this mean for the rest of the semester. So I wanted to start today with introductions of myself and some other people on our team, and kind of wrap, or kind of what the whole spirit of what today is about. And I thought I could do this best with a story. And I'd start with telling you a little about who I am. So this is me and two of my best friends, Sean and John from college, taking our classic Easter photos at the mall. And this is us in college during our junior year. And I'll tell you a story about one time we went to lunch and we were talking at a table and said, I don't know how I brought this up, but we were talking about how much we enjoyed playing hide and seek. And we had the crazy idea. I was like, hey, well, we really liked doing it way back in the day. So maybe we should get together a hide and seek game. So we're like, all right, 2 weekends from now, let's just get together. We'll go run around the campus and we'll play a game of hide and seek. And then as that week went on and going into the next week, people are asking like, hey, what are you guys doing next weekend? Blah, blah, blah. We're like, oh, we're throwing a game together, a hide and seek. And like, oh my God, I love hide and seek. Can I come play? And we're like, sure, what the heck? And then soon enough, I'm getting requests from people I didn't even know to come play this game of hide and seek with us. And on the date when we went to play, there was 80 students that showed up to our student union to play this game of hide and seek, most of whom I had never even met before. So we went out, it was chaos, it was a really good time. And afterwards, like everybody's like, oh my God, man, we should be putting more of these games together. It would be great. Like if there was an organization that did this. So we decided we would create what was known as the TCMJ Manhunt Clubs for those that play hide and seek. So we started taking it a little bit more serious, as you can see, and it grew tremendously quickly. It went from something that was just a crazy idea to all of a sudden we were throwing games with 150 students, and really became a big staple of what we did on campus. We were talked about in the campus tours, like we were throwing games during Welcome Week. There was so many procedures to set up. We talked about with our campus police department about safety, because a bunch of people running around in camo and black late at night cannot be great for the campus community. So like reporting our games. So we had like a really good experience of just something that was a crazy idea, and honestly was just a lot of fun for us. And then when we got ready to graduate, you know, we did our elections. A kid named Russ took over the organization, and we did all the proper transitions and things you would hope that you could do for a student organization, and kind of left. And overall, you know, got a couple comments from Russ the next semester, and then really didn't have much other than we followed him a little bit on social media to see what the group was up to. And then a lot of time passed, and this was a couple of years ago, and this group of students that was running the club at the time, they sent an email, or it was actually a Facebook message to me and a number of the Sean, John, etc., as the founders of the Manhunt Club, and said, hi, we'd like to invite you to come back as the founders of the group for our 10-year anniversary banquet. To my very much surprise that that they're a group that plays hide and seek in bushes and they're throwing a formal banquet, and more surprised that they tracked us down to try to get us to come back to this event. So we were like, well, we got this invitation, like it sounds crazy, but I'm like, I guess we need to go, right? Like they put in all this effort in to put this event together and do this for us, we should really show up and be present for it. So a number of us went back to this event, and I will tell you, these kids are a bunch of characters. It was unreal how far they had taken this crazy idea of a club. They had a house off campus with a banner. They were telling us how I talked to a student who literally came to the college there because of the Manhunt Club he heard about on his tour. They had taken our crazy small idea to something that I never could have imagined the amount of success that they had. And nor could I have dreamed that that would have actually happened, and how thankful they were. Like, honestly, it was weird. Like, we were legends to them of like, oh my God, it's the founders of the Manhunt Club, being really popular, like come back to this event. So I couldn't have said better things about it. And I also talked to some students there who talked about in the middle years, I guess, between there, where they talked about how the club actually wasn't always that great. They were down to, at one point, 10 people, and it was a very small group, and they were struggling in terms of leadership, and then new leaders came in and they revitalized the group. Sometimes can be the ebbs and flows in student organizations. And then to end the event, they actually asked all of us to get up and speak. Past presidents of the club, as the first president, I got up and I talked about how, like, I couldn't have expected this to be something that that it would have grown into this, and how proud of them I was for all the things that they did. And then this individual came up next, that's standing in the black t-shirt, and that's Russ, who took over the club after me. And me and Russ were both in engineering together. Like, we knew each other. We weren't super close, but like, I would say we were friends, although we didn't keep up with each other. And when he got up on the chair, he actually pulled out his phone and he FaceTimed his wife. And he said, he's like, I just wanted to know, like, she really wished she could be here today. She was working, but he's like, I actually owe this club everything. My wife and I, we met through Manhunt. Like, my exec board that I had was my that was our wedding party for our wedding, and I really owe a lot to what this organization did for me and the impact it's had on my life. Now, granted, like, we put this thing together as like people just playing hide and seek, and here I am listening to somebody whose life was completely transformed by the fact that he had this community that he found through our organization that was never even a part of our intention. And that's really what I want to talk about. Like, the spirit of today is understanding that the impact that you all have as student leaders. I couldn't be more proud of this group and, the work of the people that came after me. I think we did a lot of things right to help start the club, but it wasn't something that, like, a club can't sustain itself without a lot of help from a lot of people. It's not one person that actually does it. And I wanted to share this too. I saw this randomly on our, like, Facebook private group that they have for the club, and I don't know this student. I've never met them, but he talks about, I want to say that going to seniors as a whole and the Manhunt Club specifically is the best thing that ever happened to me from a social perspective. I don't know if all of you realize, like, how important, like, your organizations are to the development of the students on our campus. The friendships, like, hopefully you all are going to graduate, you're going to get your degree, but you're going to take a lot more than that with you if you're smart. And really, the friendships and the relationships, those photos I showed of John and Sean, I was in both of their wedding parties. Like, those are the people that you're going to get to take with you. So I want to start today by saying you're going to have a great impact on students' lives, and you're already doing it, whether you realize it or not. I'll be honest, I had no idea, but now I kind of understand it a lot better, that the community you build in your organizations is really, really important. And today is really about helping you support those communities, because I think it's going to be hard. This year is going to be really hard. And I want to say thank you just to you for being here today. Realizing that you're making a difference in our campus community at a time when it is really difficult and really challenging. So I appreciate you. And this day is really about how can we best support you as we go through the rest of this semester. So with that, I've already done my introduction, so I'm not going to talk anymore. I want to invite Marlena, who did manage to join the call, to unmute herself and quickly just introduce yourself. Marlena, you don't have to give a full 10-minute story of who you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marlena. I am the GA for student organizations. This is my second year being the GA, and it's also the second year of my grad program. I'm studying school psychology, and I'm looking forward to getting to know a lot of you all this year.
Thanks, Marlena. And you've probably gotten a lot of emails, especially if you're a returning student leader from Marlena. She's done a lot of work specifically with the involvement fairs. She's a super big help for everything student org related. Next, I'll introduce Kimberly, who's our Director of Student Organizations with SGA.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly McComb. I'm the Director of Student Orgs, just like Chris said. I am a senior, and this is my second year at SGA, and I'm here to help. You probably have received a couple of emails from me so far, so be sure to check those out and just let me know whatever you need. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. And lastly, I'm going to introduce Maya. Maya, if you're here.
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Maya Hogarth. I'm the Assistant Director of Student Organizations. I'm going to be helping Kim with you guys and anything that you need. I'm also a senior. I just became the Assistant Director a few days ago, but I'm very excited to help you guys and hopefully meet some of you guys in person one day.
We could only hope. Yeah, let's hope that's sooner rather than later. So these are the 4 individuals for our student organization on our campus. We are your point people of support. We're here for you. If you can't tell from my introduction, like, I deeply care about the impact that our student organizations have, and I will do whatever we can to assist you this year or going forward into the future. I would just say, not listed here we have a number of colleagues in fraternity and sorority life: Taylor, Rudy, and Carly. I know we have a number of fraternity and sorority leaders. They're there for you as well. You can honestly still reach out to us, but I know that they're your point people. So, and you have a separate summit. So just note that there are a lot of people supporting our student organizations, fraternities, and sororities on this campus. All right, so I talk a lot about the impact that you're having and that you will have and are having on students, but I really thought today we needed to start with a reality check of what this semester is and where we're at. So I figured I'd start with the hard stuff so we can end on a more positive note. Reality check number 1, this is going to be a really hard semester, like really, really hard. And I say that because from a student organization logistics perspective, 99% of our clubs really are all based on face-to-face interaction. Your events, the traveling to places together, your meetings, like at social by nature, our members are looking for, and this survey I had you do in the summer where I asked your opinions of, like, hey, we know COVID's going to happen this year, like coming back, like what's your preference for how you would do your meetings? Would you like to do them in person, online, etc.? And overwhelmingly, like 85% of you that said you hold weekly meetings said you wanted to do some form of in-person or hybrid meeting, and that's even with COVID. So I know that the desire for our students to be present and in person is overwhelming, and we can't do that. So we have to figure out how do we adapt, as Dr. Hurte said, to the situation that we're currently going in. Additionally, I've talked to a lot of student org leaders already about the marketing of their clubs. This is a giant concern of me too. Like, what is the number one way we typically get students to come out to events, programs? Like, what's the most successful marketing? Word of mouth, talking friend to friend. Just like that manhunt game I was talking about, we didn't put up a single flyer. It wasn't on social media. We had 80 people that showed up just from people talking to each other, right? So how you actually do your marketing when now everybody is really decentralized, right? We have students all over the place. They may not be paying attention. It's going to be difficult. And then lastly, student engagement. Like, I asked you at the beginning how you're feeling. Realize that a lot of our other students are feeling stressed, overwhelmed. They have their own challenges. And I talk about the importance of being physically present. I had a friend in college. His name was Chris Jicka, and he, during our sophomore year, he was literally in my room every single day, probably for 5 hours a day. Like, we would hang out nonstop. Like, it was just what we did. Like, after class, I knew he was going to come over. We'd hang out till late at night and he would leave, etc. And the next day, kind of do it all over again. Then in his junior year, he moved off campus, literally 2 minutes off the campus. And I saw him 3 times the entire semester, literally 3 times. And it's one of those things when it's like, when you're not physically in the space and surrounded by everything, and I talk a lot about this with commuter students, it's hard to stay engaged. And, you know, you have to make extra effort to want to be engaged. I'm talking to a bunch of student leaders who are on a call at 9:30 in the morning on a Saturday. So you understand what it's like to be engaged, but for our other students, how do we bring them in when they may not know that this is as important to them? All right, reality check number 2. Some of your members are going to probably struggle with the transition back to virtual. Mental health issues, lack of interest, Zoom fatigue, motivation. Like, these are things I feel like I am struggling as well. Some people may have challenges being back home. If my internet ever cuts out or I have a tech issue, like that, there's lots of barriers to being virtual. And then others may be even experiencing financial challenges now that, you know, they may have had a lease taken out and they don't have the funds to take care of it, or they lost their on-campus job. Like, there's a number of things that could be affecting your students. All right, and then reality check number 3, what's at stake? And I don't mean to be overly dramatic about this, but I really feel like your organization as a whole is kind of on the lines. Like, when I talk about like our TCNJ Manhunt Club, and they told me about those years when they were down to like 6, 7, 8 people, you know, it can be one of those things where it's like, if things don't go well, like, your group just might not be here anymore. our students are the lifeblood of our student organizations. And if you're not consistently getting new students into your club, no matter how good of a student leader and how great you are for your current members, you are at some point going to graduate. You're not here forever. So without active recruitment and retaining of your people, your great group might not actually still exist. And I don't want that to be where you become bitter or jaded or have difficulty finding the motivation to want to do your organization this year. It is really important, and the work that you do matters. But I want to be real with you that, like, once COVID happened, and I talked about this last semester, I am concerned that without our student organizations to be able to find new people, and it's going to be harder on you as leaders to sustain your groups long term. So we need to recognize that this year is going to be a really big challenge. All right, so where does that leave us? I'll really give you a quick five-step kickstart guide. I like being really practical with, like, we shouldn't just give into hopelessness. It's, oh my God, it's really hard, so we should give up. So I created this as just some things you can do right now to start your organization on the right foot for this semester if you haven't done these things already. So one, you have to be the leader that your organization needs right now. You can't be expecting somebody else to step up. Like, you're going to need to be the one. If you're here and you have the energy and you're ready and willing, like, you need to be the one that takes the step forward and pushes your organization where it needs to be. So to do that, though, you need to first make sure you're taking care of yourself. If you're not in the right emotional state or mental state, if COVID's got you stressed, like, you need to take care of yourself, because you can't help anybody else if you can't help yourself. So first, figure out how you can get yourself into the proper headspace, however that is for resetting and recharging. I took a lot of walks with my mom this past summer. I just needed to get out of the house and do something outdoors, whatever that looks like for you. Figure out, like, how can you best try to reset and recharge your energy. Realizing that you need to figure out the other parts of your life, classes, homework, jobs, your friends. What are your other major time commitments that are going to be pulling at you during this time of COVID? This isn't any different than any other year, but it's more important that you realize that your mental and your emotional energy might be strained. Keeping your motivation. These are some questions you can ask yourself of, why did you step up? Why did you take on this role? If you're ever getting at a point where you're feeling like, I don't know if I can do this, you need to reflect and figure out, like, well, why did you step up? Why did you agree to serve as this officer role in your organization? And think of the people who you're there to serve. How are they counting on you? At the last part, though, I do want you to say that there might come a point where there's a crossroads of your personal mental health versus the motivation to keep your organization where it needs to be. If you get to that point where it's like you're stressed beyond belief and your organization is pulling you back and it's becoming something that's draining you, always choose yourself over your organization. I know it sounds selfish, but, like, at some point, like, you have to know when things are too much for you and you need to take the priority to take care of yourself. If you can, work to get somebody else to take over the role and try to set them up. But I don't like the idea of giving up, but, like, the idea is that this is your college experience. Your organization should be something that enhances it, but your mental health and your personal wellness are first. Okay. Step 2, you have to figure out, what do you want to accomplish this semester? So I think a really easy question you can ask yourself is, by January 1st, 2021, New Year's resolution, what do you want be able to look back on this semester and be able to say, this was a success for your organization? Is it about hosting a giant event that you do every year? Is it about developing stronger bonds with your members, meeting a certain number of active members? Before you can start developing a plan to how to approach the semester, you need to figure out, like, what the heck do you want? Okay. So you can start with a status check of, where's your organization right now? Have you had meetings? Have you talked to your members? How have your plans changed since moving fully virtual? Have you adapted at all? And I'd say this is about doing things differently, not just virtually. I fall into this trap sometimes, like, hey, we do the student group summit, we need to do it here. Even when we had the first one, when it was like, we're moving everything back virtually, I was scrambling to figure out, how are we going to do this? Like, we have 3 days before the summit and we're going to, like, adapt everything. And I'm going through crazily in my mind of, like, we've set this date, it's always been this weekend, we need to make it happen. And Marlena just says to me, she's like, well, why don't you just push it back? And I was like, oh my God, Marlena, you're a genius. This is some of the things you have to consider for yourself. Don't always just assume you have to do the same things the same way. Figure out, how can you do things in a way that makes sense, given that we're in a virtual environment. Okay, it's really important to know that you can't do this by yourself. I've hinted at this before that student organizations are really about a community of students. And at some point, if you're putting everything on your back and trying to do it all yourself, you're either going to burn out, or even if you don't burn out, right? Let's say you're a super person and you can do everything for your organization and you're going to do it all. At some point when you graduate or you leave, it's all going to collapse because your organization has become so reliant as you as the linchpin for everything that the organization cannot survive without you. What you need to do for one, your own health, but also for your organization's health, is make sure that you're working with the other members of your team, your executive board specifically. So a couple things you can do for starters: checking in with your officers and figuring out where they at with adjusting to a virtual environment. Show your support. How can you support each other? Like, have that conversation with them from the onset if you haven't already. Set goals. So similar to I said how you should set your own goals, ask your executive board members what would be a success for them. I think it's really important to be open and honest. I'll say this over and over again, but realistic about these challenges that we're facing for this semester. And then also to have maybe a tough conversation about their commitments. Like, listen, like we've kind of laid out these goals, like who can actually commit to doing this work to make sure that we're going to be successful. And then at some level, reach a consensus for a plan of how you're going to move forward. And just realize that what you're thinking might be a vision for a successful semester, it could be different from the other members on your executive board. So you have to have everybody on board for whatever direction your organization is going to head. Okay. And then once you've done that, you have to bring everybody else on board. So this is a general member meeting typically. And I think you have two different options the way you can go about this. One, you can try to build your plan for the semester from the ground up. And I think for those organizations that have really active members that like to have a lot of say over the direction of the group and whatnot, this might be the best way because everybody feels really included if they build the plan together. But for some groups, like I know there's organizations where it's like, hey, my members aren't going to be thinking of like this crazy like in-depth strategy, or that it's going to overwhelm them. For that, the other option might be if you create a plan with your executive board, you can present like, hey, here's our outline of where we're heading for the semester, and then listen and receive feedback from your members. It's really important that you show that you value the feedback and you're willing to adjust whatever direction your organization is going to go. I think being open and honest is really important with your members. And I say if you can involve them in brainstorming the solutions for these problems, like how are we going to bring in new members? How can you help us versus it all fall on the executive board to solve the problem? Talk about communication for how your members want to receive information. Do people like text messages? Do people mute group chats, etc.? Figure out, do people not check their emails? What way are you going to communicate with your group in this time when you're not going to be together? And then team cohesion and social connection, I would say, are the top two things that you should be focusing on in terms of your team. You want people to feel those social connections because that's what's going to keep people motivated to keep working within your organization. All right, and then final step, don't be afraid to ask for help. So you've met a bunch of the people already on this call. You have your faculty or staff advisor as well. I'd really encourage you to meet that person, talk to them if you haven't already. They can serve as a resource for you. And then I'm also available for one-on-one appointments with your executive board advisors, et cetera. So if you need help, just let me know. We can set something up. This is top priorities. You can go back and review this later of some of the things I discussed just right now. All right, moving into the rest of today's agenda. Going through where we're at, we're going to have hate bias training coming up here in a second, presented by Office of Inclusion and Institutional Equity. From 10 to 11, we'll have our featured speaker, Stan Pearson, who we're really excited to have, who's going to talk about virtual engagement, which is a critically important topic given the summit where we're at. We'll have, depending on how quickly or slowly some of these other sessions go, we will have a stretch/coffee break for up to 10 minutes. And then we'll have breakout sessions from 11:10 to 12. And then at 12, we'll bring you all back into this session. And it's very important that you complete the summit evaluation at the end. And you use that form as a sign out from the summit. Okay, for the breakout sessions, when you registered with the summit, you selected which workshop that you wanted. If you want to change your session, or if you didn't get to register through Involved at TU for the session, you can message Ashley privately right now between now and the end of Stan's presentation, and she's going to assign your breakout session. So just let her know which session or room you would like to go to. There will be a short break between the sessions to make sure we get everything in the proper rooms. Please bear with us. This tech stuff is new for us. We're trying to make it work as best as possible. Okay. In terms of the breakout sessions, these were the 5 different options. One, hosting remote meetings for your student organization, very popular. Treasurer's Workshop for those groups looking to request funds for spring 2020. Just note this session is for non-Greek undergraduate student organizations. Strengthen communities through service, learning how to engage in service during COVID. Tiger Stripes and COVID Real Talk, I'll be leading this one. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Tiger Stripes program in the next 2 slides very shortly, but that will have a much more in-depth presentation on what the Tiger Stripes program is. For about 10 minutes of it. And the COVID Real Talk is really going to focus about the 5 steps that I talked about previously of letting you discuss. So it'll be a discussion-based session where I'll ask you to please come off mute and share with us what is going on in your organizations and try to offer collective advice to each other of how we can get through this semester. All right, and then the last one's free speech and advocacy. Is Luis Sierra on the call?
Yes, sir.
Luis, I wanted to invite you to specifically talk about your session and the TU Votes campaign.
Sure, and I'm actually, I'm going to be joined by Mercedes Hightower from the Office of Inclusion and Institutional Equity in that session, and it's going to be all about how we can, one, have a good understanding of what freedom of speech looks like, especially what it looks like at Towson University when it comes to the time, place, and manner policy, for example, that some of you may already be familiar with. So we'll talk more about that. And at the same time, we're also going to talk more about what that looks like in relation to building civic agency as far as the issues that you care about, as well as the impact that some things that might fall within free speech might still be considered things that may harm others, and how to be able to navigate that, whether you are dealing with someone who has felt harmed, or you are the person who has been harmed by it. So having conversations like that, and also most of it will be a conversational piece where we're gonna simply open it up to those in attendance to talk more about what are your struggles, what are ideas, what are things that have worked or haven't worked. So it's a space for people to learn from one another, and then from there we'll touch a bit more about the TU Votes initiative in general. But while I'm here, very quickly, I wanted to thank the over 70 student orgs who signed up to be a part of the the TU Votes student action team. So if you did, thank you. If you haven't yet, please email me. You can email me at my email address, lsierra@towson.edu. I'll drop it in the chat, or tuvotes@towson.edu. We'd love to have every student org on board so that we can, especially because of everything going on right now, we want to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. And a big important part of that is voting. And a big part of how it happens in college campuses is through student organizations. So if you have an idea, a question, any way you want to get involved, please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, thank you to the, over 70 student orgs who are already part of the team. And if you're not yet, please, we need you, and we'd love to have you. This, in a similar way as your student orgs can't exist if it only falls on one person, this movement doesn't exist on the backs of just one person or one office. The TU Votes initiative is something for everyone in this university. So, and especially now with COVID and with all the information, that we want to make sure that there's the least amount of voter confusion as possible, especially among all of you. So I wanted to definitely pull that plug in real quick. I know that we are a bit over time already.
That's okay, Luis. Thank you. I appreciate that. I also think it's really important. So I wanted to make sure if you're not already registered to vote for this upcoming election, you really should be. All right. So a couple quick important student organization updates. Ashley, if you could also drop this link into the chat for people. It's on the slide, but just so people don't have to click it. If you're a student organization, you must have this digital advisor form completed by your advisor. Don't sign it yourself. Just send them the link. And then I do strongly encourage you to meet virtually with your advisor and at least briefly talk to them about your organization's goals for the semester and how they can be supportive. Meeting with your SJA senator can be done virtually this semester. If you're not sure who your senator is, Kimberly's email's here. You can reach out to her. And then re-registration is still available on Involved at TU. The vast majority of you have already completed this. I will be sending a reminder email out to students about this, but this is mandatory, and it's even more important because we're in COVID. So if students are actually trying to get in touch with your group and your information on your Involved at TU page is out of date, you're missing any opportunities to engage those students. So please make sure, if you haven't done your re-registration form already, to update your Involved at TU information. All right, and then I will do a presentation that will be recorded later about Tiger Stripes. So Tiger Stripes for fall 2020, there's been a number of modifications to the program to make it simpler for student organizations. I'm just going to talk about the notable changes. We've drastically reduced the number of service hour requirements, and you've been given additional options, whether that's registering students to vote or attending leadership trainings such as Leadership Lunch or Tigers Lead workshops to earn Tiger points instead. I'll go over that in greater detail. I don't want to overwhelm you with that now. There's going to be no collaboration event requirement this year. The event requirement that we typically have for package 3, that is going to be a virtual, and the senator meeting will be virtual. So we can talk more about like hosting a virtual event and what that could look like. And we've added 2 student organization town halls, and I'll talk about those at the end, so I won't go into that now. With that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to the Office of Inclusion and Institutional Equity. I'm guessing it's Mercedes. I'm not sure who else. Sorry, I can't see the full participant list is here joining us today, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen here.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
And yep, there's Mercedes. So yes, you have Mercedes and myself. I'm Patricia Bradley. I am the Assistant Vice President of Equity and Compliance in the Office of Inclusion and Institutional Equity. And so we're going to be giving you a presentation this morning on our hate bias policy. Mercedes, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Mercedes Hightower. I'm the coordinator for Hate and Bias Response and Prevention through OIE. I am a Black queer woman using she and her pronouns.
All right.
I can pull up the presentation.
Okay.
Once I figure out how to share my screen.
And while Mercedes is doing that, so typically if we were in a classroom setting, I would have everyone approach another person in the group setting, and we would have a little moment of sharing love, and we just, you know, look at each other in the eyes and say, I love you, because we like to start with love. The premise is that we start with love. And so I'll share with you, I'm a little bit emotional this morning because last night I had the privilege, my niece had a baby, and so we were all on Zoom last night watching the birth of my niece.
Congratulations.
So I'm going to share the screen for, I can't do that. Okay. I can't share the screen, but that's okay. Oh.
Share away.
All right. So I'm going to break away for a little bit because on that premise of love, what we want. Can everybody see my screen?
No.
No. All right. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So we're all on Zoom. And when we think about just love, the premise of love, when a baby comes into the world, all they know is love. Hate is taught. We learn hate from history. We learn hate from experiences. And so we're all there in the Zoom, but this is the first moment when my niece held her baby. And when the baby is first born, and I have 2 of my own, but this was the first time that I actually watched and experienced it. And so when the baby heard her mom's voice, she was crying, but when she heard her mom's voice, she couldn't see, because babies can't see when they're first born, but you could see a calmness come across her when she saw her mom or heard her mom's voice speaking to her. And so then we have a picture of the parents just looking at their baby for the first time. That's love. We start with this premise of love, and even though we realize and we're cognizant of the fact that hate does exist, and it does exist on our campus, we want to respond to the hate that exists on our campus through our policies and trying to teach everyone how to deal with that and how our office deals with it, how we investigate cases of hate bias and how we respond to those. Mercedes, you can go ahead and start sharing again with your slides. How we respond to that. Our office is responsible for investigating instances of bias and discrimination. So our objective this morning is to just give you a brief overview of our policies And if you can go to the next slide, Mercedes. Brief overview of the hate and bias policies, become familiar with those policies, let you know how and where to report incidents, and reflect on how to best support the members of our community who experience this type of hate and bias and understand that there is an impact. All right, so discrimination. If you look at the definition of discrimination, it's unequal or unfair treatment of a person based upon some personal characteristic or group. So when we look at the federal laws, we talk about that personal characteristic or group. Those are what we call the protected classes. The protected classes are those classes based on your gender, your race, your ethnicity, your religion. All of those, homelessness is a protected status for the state of Maryland. So those protected classes, if you're discriminated against, meaning that you are denied some type of educational opportunity, you're denied housing or employment, when that discrimination exists, we have an anti-discrimination policy for the university that addresses that. We have both federal and state laws as well, but the federal and state laws are going to be different in policy. So federal and state laws, those are regulated by the laws and could impact you in terms of a civil or a criminal case in court. But our administrative policies is a university policy, so we have administrative processes that deal with that. So some of the federal protections I'll just go over. We have, and this is just for information, Title VI, Title VII, Title IX, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. So those are all the federal laws that apply to the protections against discrimination. So when you think about discrimination, it all started really in terms of the regulatory process in the 1960s when Congress recognized that promoting equality was important and it should be required by law. So they started off with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So we have the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that addresses race, national origin, and religion. Then we advance it to Voting Rights Act. We advance it to the Americans with Disability Act. And one that you might all be very familiar with is Title IX. So Title IX is a gender discrimination law for which our office also, I serve as a Title IX coordinator. So we address gender discrimination issues as they occur on campus as well. So again, for the purposes of our policies, these are the protected classes. So if you could just review those. The homelessness status is not one that is recognized by federal law, but it is recognized by both state law and TU policy. All right, so let's talk about our hate crimes. And Mercedes, you can jump in whenever you want to, because this is the first time that Mercedes and I have done this together, so we're going to do a little transition at some point. But so just let me know when I need to stop and you want to take over.
Trisha is nice enough to cover all the legal things that I am still learning, so I greatly appreciate that.
Okay, so keep in mind that when there are instances that occur on our campus, oftentimes it's reported to our office, and we may have a student that comes forward and says that they have been a victim of a hate crime. Oftentimes, what has occurred is actually not a crime. It may be a bias incident. They may have been harmed by something that has occurred, but it may not amount to a crime. So a hate crime is going to be a defined crime by criminal statute, like an assault, a sexual assault, a physical assault, brandishing of a weapon. Those are defined crimes. And then you have a crime that is motivated by bias. So someone engages in a criminal act motivated by their bias towards someone because they are a member of that protected class. That's a hate crime. Compare that to, if we could advance the slides. Okay, so crimes against persons. Compare that to a bias incident. So a bias incident, you will lack that element of a crime. So for a bias incident, that's going to occur when someone engages in maybe harmful language, some instances of, say, writing something offensive that's on a whiteboard in the residence halls. That could be an offensive act, but it may not amount to a crime. So when we talk about words and symbolism that could be considered a hate crime, the use of a swastika. If a swastika is painted or drawn on a building or drawn on a door, that is by state law and by federal law considered a hateful symbol and considered a crime. The hanging of a noose is also a crime. So those things would be crimes motivated by bias, because you look at the historical context of what the noose represents or what the swastika represents. However, in comparison, the use of the N-word, although it could be very offensive, people don't like it, it may not amount to, it may not reach the level of a crime based on its use. Now, if the use of the N-word is consistent, pervasive, and offensive, that it rises to the level of harassment. So someone's using that word, they've been told that it's offensive, they've been asked to stop, and they continue, then we may be able to address that by a policy violation, but it wouldn't be a hate crime. And that policy violation would amount to harassment. All right, next slide.
Thank you. And so I can talk about this one, Trisha. So this is the pyramid of hate by the ADL. And my reason for wanting to share this graphic is I think it illustrates a lot of the things that Trisha's talking about. Like at the bottom, you have things like biased attitudes and some acts of bias that may not be actionable by law, but can be really, really harmful. And we want to make sure we acknowledge that even if things are not actionable by law or doing legal or have legal repercussions, that we understand that they can still be really harmful. Like no matter what the conditions are, if someone is calling you outside of your name, that it can be really hurtful and harmful. And we want to provide support regardless of if there's legal action to be had or not. So we really want to encourage people to think about yourself when you go through these events and not necessarily the other person in the sense of wanting to see them punished, but thinking about what you need for yourself, rather that's space through the counseling center or through our office to have support, or figuring out what the resources are, or even doing counter events to find support for yourself. So really centering yourself when you go through an event that leaves you feeling targeted, regardless of legal action. And the purpose of once again, the pyramid of hate by the ADL, which I would highly encourage everyone to take a really good look at, is that it's the idea that all events they lead up to something if they're not addressed. Like bias attitudes lead to genocide if those things aren't interrupted. Like if we don't take action, which includes reporting or taking care of ourselves, they can go to a really, really bad place that ends up doing like irrevocable harm. So it's really important that we're having discussions and learning how to provide support for each other, especially for you guys as student leaders, because it's more than likely you're going to be a step for people when these things happen to them, of needing that first sign of support to help them figure out how to get to our office or how to get to Chris or how to get to someone who can provide additional support. So it's really important that you value the idea that bias attitudes is the basis for this pyramid. So if someone comes to you and expresses that something happened to them, holding that space for them, regardless of your own personal feelings or how serious or non-serious it feels for you, that how that person feels is really valid. And that leads to the purpose of this slide, which is the event may not be actionable, but that does not invalidate your experience. Like regardless of whether you find out that something can happen to that other person, like they can be forced to have a conversation or even be forced to leave school or legal repercussions, that whether that can happen or not happen, it doesn't invalidate that something happened to you. And that you have every right to feel however you feel after that event, and we want to provide support for you. Whether that's through discussions, that's through restorative justice practices, which could involve you sitting down with that person and having a conversation, just so you can let them know how they've impacted you and you can let that go. But we want to provide, once again, wanting to provide support regardless of what those next steps and actions end up looking like.
All right, so let's know and acknowledge, and you're going to go over this a lot more in your breakout sessions, but there is some speech that is protected. So even though it may be harmful and it may be offensive, some speech that is intended to insult has the very needed intent or much intended much intended effect of assaulting someone in their perceived or actual group. Even though it is offensive, it may not constitute a hate crime, even though it is hateful speech. So we're mindful of protecting freedom of speech and other civil liberties, but we also know that the First Amendment protects some type of speech, including that speech that is offensive or hateful. And so with that in mind, that even though some speech is protected speech, we're still going to address that. Even if it may not be a violation of our policy, we're going to try to use other measures to address that, because as you saw in that pyramid, that hateful speech, it may start with hateful speech, but it rises to the level of something more, and we want to address it and try to resolve it before it gets to that point. Next slide.
And if I can add, Trisha, and I really think it's important that we acknowledge that we know Towson is a public university. So like Trisha said, that can limit our responses to things because we're public property and we have to protect freedom of speech and everything else like that. And once again, while also understanding that that can make it an unsafe place for people sometimes based on how they're feeling, by what someone says. So we acknowledge that that's a limitation that we have, and once again wanting to provide support when people are hitting that wall of realizing that some things are going to be protected on campus, but that we still acknowledge that it can do some harm, those things that we're forced to protect, and we want to hold that space for people.
All right, so let's advance these slides, because what we do want to do is make sure that we talk about a little bit about Zoom bombing, because we know that that is an offensive act that has occurred recently in terms of people getting on Zoom and posting either offensive pictures or saying offensive words. And so we want to talk about that a little bit, and then we only have 5 more minutes. So after we talk about Zoom bombing, I want to just go over what your reporting options are and where you report. So if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so really quick, Chris, we were made aware about the Zoom bombing incident that occurred with student orgs. And so I just did some basic research to find some ways to prevent that. So these are just some preventative measures that can be taken to prevent incidents of Zoom bombing, which if you are you're the student leader for your organizational meetings, you have the ability to enact a lot of these protections. And if you need assistance, the technology for student services, which is the link is on this slide at the bottom right here, they're happy to help. I did reach out to them and they are able to provide assistance with setting these things up. And also Zoom itself provides a lot of support if you need help in figuring out the things, how to enact these things. As a student, you have access to the paid full version of Zoom, which means you have the ability to do all of these things. So I would highly encourage making sure you're using your Zoom, your student Zoom account, which is a paid for account, versus a personal account, which has limited access to security measures. So those really important things, like maybe muting people when they come in, having a waiting room for your Zoom meeting so that you can check people out and validate them before admitting them. As we've seen on the screen so far, we've had several times where it admit a person and the person's name comes up and Chris or an administrator is able to let them in. And that's something we would definitely encourage you to do to prevent Zoom bombing so people can't get in and out of your events. We do understand that for student orgs, you're trying to recruit people and maybe that means a more open forum, but we also want to provide support. So if a Zoom bombing does happen, please reach out to our office so we can provide emotional support or any other type of support for you that we can. While also we understand that likely the Zoom bombers are not identifying themselves. And so we don't even know if they're TU students or we have the ability to do much to them because we can't identify them. But once again, just because that person who did this incident can't be identified does not invalidate that it was harmful for you. And we want to provide support around that.
And we also want you to report it, because if you report it, we can document it in our system in terms of the number of incidents that are occurring and how we need to address it further. So what your responsibility will be and what our responsibility is to preserve any evidence that you might see of the Zoom bombing, or if it's evidence in Housing Residence Life or in your student org where someone has posted some offensive language or something has been drawn on a building, take a picture, call TUPD. TUPD can preserve it as well, because that's all going to be evidence, and report it to our office. So let's go to the reporting slide so that we can, so that everyone knows where to report. There you go. Go back one. There. Okay. So if you believe an incident to be a hate crime, we need to report it to TUPD, Towson University Police Department. Hate crimes should be reported to them. If you don't report to TUPD, if say you're off campus at an off-campus event or you live off campus and an incident occurs, you can report it to Baltimore County Police or the jurisdiction in which you live. Those are for hate crimes. Hate crimes, again, are crimes that are incidents that are defined by a crime plus motivated by bias. For reporting to our office, you can report online. We have an online reporting system through Advocate. So if you go to Towson University's webpage, do a search for OIIE or hate and bias, it'll take you directly to the site and you can report it online. You can call our office, you can email us. Right now, we are not having one-on-one meetings with students, but we are conducting virtual meetings if you want to report it. And once you report it to us, our process will be to do an initial intake, gather information, determine whether this is an incident that can be investigated. I will assign an investigating officer to determine whether or not there's been a policy violation or if there's a policy violation and a crime. And if it's both, then we may work in conjunction with the local police authorities to address the matter. So there we have it. We have 1 minute for questions.
And just so everyone knows, we recently created an email address specifically for bias response. So I monitor this account as Trisha does as well as our administrative assistant in the office. And so if you have, like if your group wants a specific, I'm happy to come to groups and do talks around hate and bias if that would be helpful for your specific group, or if you have questions about how to report or need help with the reporting process, please feel free to reach out to us via that email. And I will likely be the one responding, and I'm happy to take the time out to meet with people via Zoom, like Trisha said, or responding through email to help in any way I can.
Yeah. 10:05.
There we go.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much, Mercedes and Trisha. Can everybody, since we're not going to clap, yeah, let's do hands. I see Ruby, thanks.
And I'll also put my direct email in the chat as well. If people have questions or want to reach out to me further for anything, please feel free.
And so as we always end, we end with love. I love you guys.
Same here. I agree with Trisha fully.
Yep, and Mercedes is doing one of the breakout sessions, so if you're interested
I'll be with Louise in that session.
Yep, if you're interested in going further into this topic and advocacy, message Ashley if you need to have your breakout meeting switched. All right, and then I'm gonna actually turn it over to Ashley really quickly. Oh, were you gonna say something? Sorry. Okay, cool. I'm gonna turn it over to Ashley really quick. Is Stan with us, Ashley?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Ashley's going to introduce our featured speaker. We're really lucky to have Stan joining us today, so I'll turn it over to Ashley. I want to just offer a thank you for being with us today and being willing to dedicate and donate your time to help our student organizations. I greatly appreciate it. I also apologize for slightly running over, so I know you probably didn't have as much time to do your sessions as you'd liked. I do want to just take that moment to really appreciate that. Let me share my screen really quick as we wrap up. Can everybody see it okay? All right, thank you for the affirmation. So a couple of just final dates that are coming up for this semester that are important. So I mentioned that we're hosting 2 student organization town halls this semester. These aren't specific, I wrote it as student org town halls, but honestly, fraternities and sororities, you are welcome to attend as well. This is really a chance for us to collect feedback from our student organizations of how are things going within your organizations this semester. My goal is to collect that feedback so I can use it to advocate on your behalf and talk about the policy changes and how can we best support you during the virtual environment. And as we go toward the spring semester, hopefully with a return to being in person on campus. And then in terms of Tiger Stripes, these are the 2 deadlines I'm going to share. I did just record the presentation I did with my session, so that will be available as well. But the 2 deadlines are October 1st and December 7th. And for the October 1st one, which is the one that's coming up, you will get reminder emails, but it's re-registration on Involved at TU, your advisor form, and to meet with your SJA senator. Additionally, I do want to also plug some of the upcoming workshops that we have. There's a number of different ones being offered through our office specifically. So the Tigers Lead program is the new program of basically reformed iLead. There's a number of sessions here that are happening through the end of September. And then we also have the Leadership Lunch program, which are topic specific sessions, really looking at things that are currently going on around the area. I know that for my session, and I think a lot of students are probably in this one, we have one coming up on 9/22 for digital marketing for your student organization. I think everybody's really struggling at this point to find better ways to reach students. That's going to be done by our marketing department on campus. So they're going to really talk about like how can you develop a marketing strategy to reach more students and be more effective. So I would highly encourage you to consider attending that one. And also it's worth 20 Tiger points for those that are looking for higher Tiger Stripes packages. And then immediately later today, we actually have, there's the University System of Maryland Consortium is doing a benefit concert for Maryland. So a number of schools are being represented here with performances from Towson University along with like real actual big stars. So if you're interested, it starts at 2 p.m. today. Here's the information. There's a bit.ly USM United if you'd like to attend that. All right. And then lastly, I really appreciate all of you being here today and taking the time to put the effort and energy to try to work on your clubs. Having talked to groups in my session, I mean, I've got groups here that say they're 3 people trying to run a 10-person exec board and they're all new to their roles, right? So there's people, you guys are going through some tough stuff, and my goal is to try to help you as best as possible navigate this challenging semester. I'd appreciate it. We're using this as the sign out, so the link is on the screen, but Ashley, if you can help me, or Marlena, please share the link in the chat as well, so that people can directly click it. Please make sure you complete this this form before you leave today. This is how we're going to collect our feedback. So if there are things that were useful to you in the session, or if there are things, improvements and changes, I honestly, nobody asked me this, which I'm a little bit surprised on, about like what's going to happen for the spring. I have no idea. Nobody tells me anything. So I'm in kind of a waiting situation as you guys are, but there's, assuming we may have to be in a virtual setting like this for the spring, I want to know if there's anything that we can do better to make sure that this is as useful to you as it can be. So once again, please don't hesitate to reach out with questions, comments, or help that you may need. We really appreciate you being here today. Thanks a lot. I will be chilling here. I'll read your chat messages, which, hold on, I gotta pull them up if there's people that have questions. I'm happy to answer them for you at this point. And then otherwise you can complete, hold on. And then otherwise you can complete the assessment link and then sign off and enjoy the rest of your day. So thanks a lot. Who's going to ask something?
That was me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, go ahead, Kimberly. No problem.
Do you mind posting the advisor link again in the group chat for some people who are asking me?
Yes. Give me a second. I'm going to stop sharing. I'll just stop sharing my screen just temporarily because I can't actually grab it otherwise.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Lydia asked the question, would you be able to email today's presentation? I think this has been done in previous years. Yes, so even better than in past years, we were only able to send you the PowerPoint slides. I can share the PowerPoint slides that I have for my presentation, that's no problem, but we recorded most of the sessions, so I will work with the other presenters to get them uploaded to YouTube and captioned, and then we'll share the links to those so that if you have other members of your exec board that need this information or you want to share it with them, it'll be available for you. Oh, are we allowed to? Yes, if you just put the names of the 2 or more organizations you're with, that's okay. Also, I forgot to mention this, just as one final reminder, if you didn't sign in, so if you showed up a little bit late, you're having computer issues, whatever the case may be, please write your name and position and the organization that you're representing into the chat so that we can make sure that we give you credit for being here. We will also look at the assessments as well, but it's not a bad idea. Will the website be updated with new COVID changes to the Tiger Stripes requirements. Yes, I apologize. Things have been moving really quickly. Today was a big deal, so we wanted to make sure we got everything together. We do have the updated requirements. It is in the PowerPoint. That will be updated on the website. Yeah, for those that don't know, we like edited everything for Tiger Stripes for us coming back for our hybrid like virtual / in-person semester, and then we had to like edit everything again as we're moving to fully virtual. But for those that were in my session, the new requirements are pretty low, so they're supposed to be pretty easy for you to complete while you're in a virtual setting. And thank you for all who are continuing to finish signing in.
Just a quick question. So I had put that I was here for one of my orgs, and I like forgot to mention the other one, so I just put it in the chat. Will that be like checked off? Like, will you or somebody be going through that? Okay.
Yeah, you can thank Marlena. She's amazing. She's going to be helping with all this check-in next
Okay,
week at some point. So yeah, we'll go through and make sure. Thank you. So I will say, if for some reason you're marked out as like, hey, I didn't get marked off as having gotten attendance once we updated on the new Google Doc, what I would just say is and I'll send a link so you can verify your attendance later once we update it all. You can just shoot us an email and say, hey, no, I was there, here's my name, and we can just do it. It like exports it all into a text document so we can find your name, and that'll cover you.
Okay, so we would like get notification of some kind if we were marked out, or?
Yeah, so after this, I'll send an email. It's not going to be today, and it's probably not. It might not even be next week, to be honest. It might be the week after because it's going to take us some time. But we'll send an email to everybody, say, hey, please verify that you got credit for attending the summit. Or if you get an email saying like, hey, you were not present at the summit, etc.
Okay.
Just follow up.
All right.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Appreciate the question.
I saw a question in the chat that asked about the community service hours. So the community service hours have been adjusted for this semester. And again, all this information will be updated on the website, and we will be sending you the PowerPoints, and we will be sending follow-up emails just so you guys are aware. So it's not just a one-time thing, one time done said. You're gonna have this information reoccurring, and it will be available to you on multiple different outlets.
Yeah, for those, because somebody did ask this question in our breakout session, the numbers that the Tiger Points system that we emailed out initially is still what we're going with this semester. However, instead of being 50 Tiger Points for package 2, 100 for package 3, and 150 for package 4, it's 0 Tiger Points for package 2, 20 for package 3, and 40 for package 4. So it's overall significantly reduced.
And also there will be other opportunities to achieve Tiger Points. We understand that this is very hard to do community service and things of that nature. So attending We Lead, attending the town hall, right, Chris?
Town hall is a separate thing, yeah, but that's okay.
I apologize, scratch that. What I'm trying to say is there is going to be multiple opportunities throughout the semester to achieve these points, because we understand that you cannot volunteer the way that you used to, but we can still do things within our own means virtually. So again, all this information will be presented to you and sent to you multiple times so you guys know, or everyone knows.
I just have a quick question. I know that you guys are saying that it's gonna be posted, but like, is there just a number? Like, it went from like 150 down to like 100 maybe, or I just like want a specific number, like maybe?
Sure, hold on. Let me do this real quick. I'll share my screen again with the presentation that you can have for right now. You can screenshot this if you'd like. Sorry, I'm like navigating multiple windows here. Share. Can you see my screen okay? Okay. And then I'm going to post the document on the screen too, so I'll give you actually 2 different options that kind of showcase everything. So package 1 is completely unchanged. Package 2, the only requirement is to meet with your SJ Senator virtually, so that's pretty easy. For package 3, it is 20 Tiger Points and attending one of the town halls and 1 virtual event. And this is only for getting a budget. That's through like the Treasurer's Workshop. And then for package 4, 40 Tiger points, attend both virtual town halls, and then student engagement record. That's it. Now, one other thing I will share real quick. 1 second. And you can screenshot this as well if you'd like. Just if you want things immediately, I completely understand. So this outlines the changes that we made from pre-COVID. This was what used to be the requirements to what are the requirements now. So you can see for like package 2, for instance, here, it was complete 50 hours of community service and meet with your SGA senator. And for this semester, it's only meet with your SGA senator. So this middle column kind of outlines the requirements. And then I'm going to scroll down real quick so you can get one more screenshot if you want it. This is for package 4. So it's 40 Tiger points, these things, and this explains the Tiger points at the bottom.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you know when would be the Google Sheets updated for the fall semester?
Yeah, we're going to hopefully have that up next week. Sorry, this was like the top priority and the virtual involvement fair. So the package status numbers are in it. It's in the red column under the spring 2020 column or tab, but we will have like a new one. Part of the challenges, we haven't fully figured out how we're going to track some of these things like the Tiger points. So I have to figure out exactly what that sheet's going to look like, but it will be updated. So it should be done before the end of next week, and we'll send an email out with that too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, any final questions? Sorry, I'll check the chat again.
I have a question.
Yeah.
My vice president accidentally submitted the advisor form instead of the sign out form.
That seems like something that could happen, hilariously enough. Okay, no worries. You won't get penalized. We'll deny your advisor form. Can you just make sure that they also complete the assessment as well?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yeah, it's all right. I honestly, we realized that might happen. I tried to make an emphasis, like, don't fill it out yourself, but your group won't get in trouble. All it's going to mean is we're going to deny it if it doesn't come from a faculty or staff TU email account. So don't worry. To be honest, we have that happen in normal years too, where you have to hand sign. Like, we probably get at least 10 a year where they're signed by a student that just didn't know better. Rachel's asking, how can we access our group funds in the SGA bank? And then 2, are we allowed to host in-person events off campus this semester? So, all right, first off, is Philly here?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you take the SGA one first, and then I'll take the second.
What was the SGA one? How can we host off-campus events?
No. How can we access their group funds from their bank?
Oh, yeah, I discussed that in the Treasurer's Workshop about accessing funds, but you would just have to contact Vicky Young. She's the one that's the SGA specialist. I'll write her email down there, but she's the one that handles all of the funds aspect of it. But I'll write her email in a second.
Okay. And then Rachel, to your second question, I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure what the protocols are for this, so I don't want to tell you something incorrect. I would say if you're planning trying to do an off-campus event, why don't you just shoot me an email and then I can make sure that, like, however you're conducting it, it'll be done safely. I think the main thing with any types of events that are happening now is, like, you know, ultimately, like, your organizations are really important, but, like, the whole school moving to a virtual environment was done in the interest of student safety. So, you know, what steps can you take to make sure if you're doing an in-person event, you're doing it in a safe manner? That would be the way I would look at it. Thank you guys for the positive love in the chat. We appreciate it. Can we enter the virtual competitions? Everyone submits their videos separately. Anja, can you explain your question?
Yeah, there's I'm in 2 clubs this year, so I'm here for both. I'm here for figure skating, and there's a virtual competition that has a collegiate component. And I just wanted to know, like, the club president said we probably couldn't do it, but it's all like you submit your own video from home. So would that be something that we would be allowed to do?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. I would talk to, do you know Jeff Keenan?
Yeah.
Okay, I would follow up with Jeff about that specifically because I don't know what their regulations for sport clubs are right now, but I think that they were ceasing all like intercollegiate competition. But I don't know if, maybe there can be an exception for a virtual type thing. So I would definitely just email him and ask that question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And like I said, I apologize. I said this in my breakout, but like I'm not like this whole pandemic thing. Like this throws the rule book out the window. So like I don't know the answer to all the questions. So if you ask me something I really don't know, I'll just try to get you the answer as quick as I can. We're just trying to work through these one at a time. I'm going to mispronounce your name, Dacia. All right, asks, what's the difference between Tiger Points and service hours? So realistically, what we did with Tiger Points is one service hour equals one Tiger Point. So technically, in that regard, they're completely the same exact thing. The big difference is we wanted to give students that may not feel comfortable or might have difficulty finding service opportunities a chance to complete their service hour requirement in the past in a different way. So for instance, attending a leadership lunch workshop presentation is worth 20 Tiger Points. So you could choose to have, 5-year members do 4 service hours on their own time to receive 20 Tiger Points, or you could attend one of the leadership lunches to attain those Tiger Points in that way. The idea is we're trying to give student organizations more options for how they can go about meeting the requirements to make your lives a little bit easier. I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry if I got your name incorrect.
Hey, can you just briefly explain what's the virtual Tiger Hall?
Sure. The virtual town hall, I can share my screen again. Maybe I should just leave it up. 1 second. You can screenshot this slide as well if you would like. 1 second, let me share. Sorry, issues moving so many things on my screen around. Okay, share. So what are the student organization town halls? So these are the 2 dates for them. So the idea behind the virtual town hall, it's less of a Q&A from our perspective where I'm not coming in to like answer questions, although we will probably do that for a portion of it. These are going to be 2 dates throughout the semester where we're going to use the opportunity for you to give us feedback about what's going on in your student organization. So the idea of like challenges that you're facing, issues within your club, any struggles that you're having, with two things in mind. One is if we can assist you and better serve you in that moment, like we want to try to make sure we're able to get you support, whether that's from our office, the student government, or somewhere else on campus. So one is to get that, and the second piece is to make us aware. So I can't advocate on your behalf as a student org if I don't know the challenges that you're facing. So if there's roadblocks that Taos University as a whole has set up, I can then say, hey, I've got 10 of our clubs who are really struggling with this policy because they can't do XYZ online. Is there a way we can adjust this to make things easier for them this semester? Or thinking about next semester as we're getting back on campus, hopefully, what kind of changes can we make to make sure that we're in a good spot for next semester? Realize that these policies that we're working on now are all being created. So we want to make sure that like, as we're trying to construct them, we're doing them in a way that's helpful to you as student groups. So that's a little bit about like what we're hoping with these town halls. And I said this in my session, but you don't have to wait to the town hall. If you're having an issue in your club, please contact us in advance. Like if there's something that you can say you need assistance with, you don't need to wait. But the idea is we wanted to make sure we had at least 2 times throughout the semester where we're trying to pull our student organizations back together to get your feedback so that we can be more supportive for you. Okay. Sorry, it's like hard to see the chat when I have my screen shared, so that's the only reason I keep backing out of it. Yeah, Kimberly in the chat. This has just turned into a really informal Q&A, so like you don't have to stay. The summit is over. Like you got your Saturday to go on. Feel free to go have a good time. I was just hanging out to answer a couple of questions. Like we really appreciate you guys being here. And like, it is nice to actually get to see you too. So if there's stuff you need, we're here. Otherwise, go enjoy the rest of your weekend. Okay.
Chris, I have a quick question.
Sure.
How do I send you my recorded session?
Okay. That's a great point. So I won't answer that right now on during the call, but we can work with you afterward to get it. It's saved on your computer. You have to search for your Zoom folder, and then you'll be able to pull it up. Yep, no worries. Yeah, I'll reach out to all the speakers early next week to get your presentations. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate that.
Are there any more questions before we close out? Again, it's really nice to see everyone, and we want to emulate that we do care and that we do understand. It's not like we're posting these rules and all these guidelines and information because we want to. We're doing this because we want to be as effective as possible. So please just share your input and share if you have any questions or concerns or you think something's too much. We really do care about what it is that you're feeling and saying. So just let us know.
Yep. And you can also put that on the assessment too. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I kept interrupting, but
No.
I haven't actually heard. I don't think I've heard from my senator yet. So
Okay,
how would I?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How would I identify who my senator is, or do I have one? Do all clubs have one?
So all clubs, I'm not going to say all clubs have one just because it does affect, it does depend on your status. So if you were claimed as an active, you probably would not have a senator. However, I can check to see if you were assigned one. So what is your student group's name?
We're the knitting club, and we're like a type 1, I think. So we're like, we don't have like a budget or anything like that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Do you mind just typing that in the chat so I can see it clearly, and then also putting your email, so if for whatever reason we get cut out or something like that, I can still get back to you.
I have a question about my senator too.
Yes, so if you guys have any questions, or if you all have any questions about your senator, just feel free to put your club and the email that you want to be contacted with, and I will get back to you.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Any last minute questions here? We have a question about a senator, I think.
Yes, again, just to be clear, I'll put my email in the chat as well, just to make things easier. But just let me know if you haven't been reached out by your senator or anyone in general, then I can get that information to you. It's possible that you might not have a senator, and if that's the case, then I will just be your senator in the interim time being. So just bear with us. Thank you.
Can I get the name of the other person who spoke up and said that they wanted to know who their senator was?
Me, Paulo de Guzman.
Yeah, which club?
Students Helping Honduras.
Thank you.
Or package 4.
Paulo also wrote in the chat. You can grab his email from there.
I've wrote in the chat as well for the knitting club.
For knitting club, I'm gonna actually ask you to just hold on for a second. But in terms of helping for Honduras, I do know your senator's name is Amia Newman.
Yeah, okay. Do you have an email address I can contact her?
Yes, so now that we know who is your senator, we can contact them as well.
Okay.
And I can actually put her, I will contact you separately, and I will give you her email address. Can you just put in that you need it in the chat so that when we save it and we go back to it, we can see that, so everyone is accounted for, please? Thank you so much.
Here we go.
Also, in the past, when it comes to senators, something that I've seen is, being a senator myself, is that check your spam account. I know that happened to me last year where my emails were going to spam. I don't know if that's the current state now or case now, but we want to just double check that like everything is going to the right email, and also double check that the email on or involved at TU is accurate, because that is what the senator would be going off of. So if that is inaccurate information, then the senator would have like no way to contact you. So just make sure all your information is up to date.
So I sort of accepted club leadership from someone who didn't like save or document like a lot of what they were doing. So I'm very new to this, and so I don't know if they received word from the senator, and they don't really keep track of emails, so they don't know either.
Okay, cool. I can definitely, I don't think you have been assigned a senator, so I will just be your senator, or Maya and I will be your senator for the interim phase. But just to make sure you can update the information on Involved It to you, and then we'll get in contact with you, and you can go step by step on how to go over those changes. Okay?
Yeah, I'm the primary contact now, so that's awesome.
Yeah. So you would be meeting with me or Maya at one day, and then we'll have 15 minutes to talk, and we'll just talk about all the requirements and different things of that nature. That's typically what you discuss with your senator. So you're fine. Again, all information will be due by October 1st. But again, the fact that you're communicating with me now, at least I'm aware that you didn't really have a senator. So exemptions can be made if necessary.
Hey, Celeste, are you guys doing any like virtual knitting events? Like a Learn to Knit? That would be pretty helpful, I think, in this time we're all locked in our houses.
Oh yeah, we've gotten like a lot of new members because people like are picking up like the hobby, and like a lot of like pre-med students need to learn like digital dexterity and stuff. So it's like, this is a good time for knitters.
Oh my
I
gosh.
think Celeste and I actually had French together, and she was like a avid
Maya!
Yes, hello.
Hey. Sorry.
She was knitting in class, and I always was like, oh my God, that's such a great idea.
It's weird. It's like, oh man, other clubs are struggling. Like, knitting goes off the charts. There you go.
Not off the charts. We have like 13 members as of now.
That's great though.
13 members is a lot. Trust me. There are package for groups that have like 3. So 13 is a good.
I feel better now.
And the 3 is not bad. Again, it's quality over quantity. Don't be discouraged if you have like 2 members. The fact that you have any members is really important. You know, you're affecting somebody. So it's okay. You're doing a great job. You all are doing great jobs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll contact with you guys if I have like a Learn to Knit night or something. Thanks for the idea.
Would definitely attend.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions before we start to log off? If not, again, we have put our emails in the chat, and you receive emails from me weekly. I sent out an email yesterday, so just let us know. You can receive emails from Chris, me, and Maya soon. So if we didn't get to you today, we will get to you very, very soon. So just be on the lookout for everything, and I hope everyone has a great weekend.
Thanks,
I just
guys.
have one more thing.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One more thing to add from me. I just like to say, I overall, like I said, I just got here, so I'm pretty new. That's why in terms of like nuance for these things, I didn't have much information, but I am always here to help. I'm a quick learner, and in terms of after this summit, if you can't reach Kim, I'm definitely available. Again, I will put my email back in the chat, and it was really great getting to see all the wonderful clubs that Towson offers, meeting you guys, seeing your faces, and have a great day, guys.
Bye, guys. See you later. Thanks for being here.